Can the new Uta leader card prove that vanilla actually is a spice? It is, that's a factual thing, but let's talk about it. What's up, captains? Welcome back to the other decks. My name is Casual Dobo, and today I'm going to be doing a quick video on the new Uta film leader card. Normally these deck profiles do take a little bit of time just because I like to explain a lot of the effects. However, the way that we're building this is actually more vanilla based. Because if you don't know, the special promotion pack that Uta comes in actually is more closely akin to a demo deck, and actually comes with a couple of really awesome vanilla character cards for like the red-haired pirates, as well as Monkey D. Luffy, as a way to promote the new film Red. So I really wanted to challenge myself in terms of deck building and try and utilize those cards a little bit, but also kind of improve upon it with some other cards that we've seen in, set 1, Romance Dawn, as well as some of the starter deck stuff. So it's a little bit of a mix, but definitely a lot more vanilla based than a lot of my other deck profiles. And the reason why vanillas kind of work in this deck is because of Uta's ability, right? So it says activate main once per turn, up to one of your characters without effects, gain plus 2000 power for the turn. So that's pretty impressive. As a quick note, it has come out in the Bandai Q&A that things with trigger abilities, such as the carrot card, do count as having an effect, right? So you aren't able to use Uta's ability with carrot. But no, this is actually a pretty interesting deck, and I do have a variation of this that I think is a little bit more interesting that might be, for those Digimon players who might be interested in the One Piece card game. Also, if you didn't know, this channel does cover both of those games, so if that's something you're interested in, please consider subscribing to the channel. And if you're enjoying this video while you're down there, please consider giving this a like as well. But anyway, that's enough for me. Let's just go ahead and jump right into the deck profile. Alright, and here we are at the deck profile, and like with all of the One Piece decks that we do, we're going to start off with the Don Curve, and this one is less of a curve, more of a slope, right? That last bar is a little misleading because I do generally characterize things 7 and up as one bar. However, it's not. If you were to view this deck profile through OnePieceCardGame.dev, which I do have a link down below, it would see that it's pretty much a downward slope. And that's because we're very heavy in the 1s and 2s. We're looking to get pretty much cheap and effective characters out onto the field, and then that is sort of supplemented and bolstered by our larger characters, which are some of those red hair pirates vanillas. And the beautiful thing about those cards is that they all have counter potential, right? In fact, in terms of counters, we're running 37 counters. 37. That's honestly kind of wild, but it's because of those promotional cards, those promotional vanillas, that we're able to achieve this. Alright, so I think that's enough of me talking about the statistics. Let's actually go ahead and jump into the deck list. Alright, and here we are at the actual deck list, and let's start off with our leader. Uta is a mono red 5000 power leader, and talked about the effect already a little bit, but activate main once per turn. So essentially rest one of your Dawn in the cost area. Up to one of your characters without effects gains plus 2000 power for this turn. So yeah, that can apply to any of our vanillas, right? Now let's take a look at the actual cards we're running. We do have 4 copies of Otama, so 1 cost to play, 0 power, but this is a counter 2k. And then on play, fantastic ability, give up to one of your opponent's characters minus 2000 power for the turn. So Otama's here not only just for the 2k counter, but also to kind of play into our jet pistol combo so that we can deal with any opposing kid character cards, right? Because if you don't know, the super rare from the first set, Captain Eustace Kid, is actually incredibly strong, and so you still need to be able to build a couple of counters into your deck in order for any deck to really run smoothly. That combo isn't the only way. Our vanillas actually are strong enough to swing over Kid naturally, but that combo is actually pretty good if you have the Dawn available. So 4 copies of Otama, kind of a must. Next up, we do have 4 copies of Tony Chopper. So this is our 1k 1 cost blocker from the starter deck. Because our main attackers aren't really utilizing any additional effects, nor does our leader give us any additional benefits until we get a vanilla out, it's really good to have these sort of chump blockers or things that can stall the game out long enough in order for you to go into your other larger swings. So that's why we have 4 copies of that. Next up, 4 copies of Bartolomeo. So 2 cost to play, 2000 power, does have counters, which is nice, so counter 1k, has blocker, but Don times 2 on your opponent's turn, this character gains plus 3000 power. So this can potentially be a 5k blocker. And then yeah, obviously we can attach Dawn normally, but we are playing some Brooks for not only just a 2k counter, but also to put some suspended Dawn onto Bartolomeo. So that's a potential combo we have here as well. But mostly I'm using Bartolomeo as a blocker, kind of regardless of power. Moving on, we do have 4 copies of Karoo. That's right, Asaraf, Duck Meta is back! And for those of you who don't know what that is, go check out my game with Asaraf from sort of way back in the day, and by way back in the day, I mean like 2 or 3 months ago. But we played starter deck matches, and he was very hyped for the Duck meta. And honestly, the Duck meta kind of works. 1 cost to play, 3000 power, counter plus 1000. Normally kind of unassuming, to be honest, right? You might only use this as a counter when you're playing your starter deck matches. But with Uta, for 1, you can make this a viable attacker, which is awesome. So, Karoo is not useless. Next up, I do have 2 copies of Gordon, 2 cost to play, 3000 power, mostly using this as the counter 2k, but on play, you can place a card from your hand at the bottom of your deck to draw 1. So this just helps with a little bit of cycling. Gives us a little bit of, I mean, it's not pure draw power because we're trading in a card, but it allows us to kind of dig through our deck a little bit easier, especially in a color where drawing is not common. So pseudo draw ability, counter 2k, Gordon is an inclusion in this deck. Next up, we do have 4 copies of Brook, so 2 cost to play, 3000 power, counter plus 2k. Main reason why we have Brook in here, but also on play, give your leader or one of your characters 2 rested Dawn cards. So this just allows us to utilize our Dawn in slightly more effective ways than normal. And like I said, if you pair this up with Bartolomeo, Bartolomeo just becomes a stronger blocker. Next up, we do have 3 copies of Zoro, and this is the super rare from OP01, the first set. And honestly, this is just too good not to have in a red deck. And when I originally built this as just vanillas only, which admittingly is a bad idea, one of the things I thought about was I don't necessarily have enough pressure onto my opponent to really threaten them in any moment, because even if I play a bunch of vanillas, my opponent still has potentially some abilities that can ruin that game plan. So I needed a rusher, and Zoro is the best when it comes to that. So 3 copies of it. Next up, we do have 4 copies of the Jellyfish Pirates. So 3 cost to play, 5000 power, counter plus 1000, and it's a vanilla. So if you use this with Uta's ability, this can be a 7000 power attacker for 3 costs, which is kind of wild. But now we go into the meat and potatoes of the deck. So 4 copies of Monkey D. Luffy, 4 to play, 6000 power, counter plus 1000, vanilla. Actually, I'm just going to burn through all these ratios. So 3 copies of Yasop, so 6 cost to play, 8000 power, counter potential. Got 3 copies of Ben Beckman, who's a 7 cost to play, 9000 power. And then 2 copies of Shanks, who is 8 cost to play, 10,000 power. All of them have counter potential, which is awesome. Now, one of the things that you may or may not have noticed, depending on your familiarity with the card game, is that for these power levels, you know, they cost 1 less than their standard counterpart. And nothing shows this off more than having the secret rare from the first set, Rush Shanks. So this is 9 cost to play, 10,000 power, but has Rush, and then when attacking, your opponent cannot activate blocker on characters with 2000 power or less during this turn, or during this battle, sorry. But you'll notice, for the same power level, this vanilla Shanks costs 1 less. So essentially, the standard that we have in the One Piece TCG is that things with effects generally cost 1 more than their base vanilla counterpart. And while this doesn't really mean anything now, it is a good sort of measure of measurement. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. It's a good standard to have in order for us to be able to measure the effectiveness of future cards, right? Because like in the future, if we see something with 10,000 power but it costs 9 or 10, then we know it's kind of a junk card. Or if we see something with 10,000 power that costs 8 and has an ability, we know that that's probably going to be a god tier card. Well, depending on the ability, I guess. Obviously, not a perfect unit of measure, but it is something for us to look forward to going into the future. So, those are the character cards. Let's go ahead and look at our events. So, I have 2 copies of I Can Smell the Adventure, and this is just shuffle your hand into your deck, then draw a card for each card shuffled this way. And then trigger, activate this main ability. Now, the reason I have this here is mainly to refresh my hand in case I'm not really thinking to utilize anything that I have in hand. And I think one of the reasons you don't see this in most standard decks is because of the potential for counters, right? But because we have so many vanillas, I'm not worried about losing, counter potential on my next turn. I can actually use this a lot more strategically. Say I have a hand that has a bunch of counters but no Zoro, and I really could use, a swing for game. I can use this, refresh, and then most likely get the same amount of counters back into my hand, maybe a little less, but have the potential to see that rush Zoro. And for 1 Dawn, it's honestly a pretty good trade-off. But admittedly, I don't want to see it too many times, so that's why I only keep 2 copies. Next up, do have 3 copies of Gum Gum Red Hawk. So 2 costs to play. This is a event counter. Your leader or up to one of your characters gains plus 4,000 power for the turn, which is pretty standard for 2 cost event counters. And then KO up to one of your opponent's characters with 4,000 power or less. And then trigger ability, give up to one of your opponent's leaders or characters minus 10,000 power for the turn. So that's the whole turn. And I think this is really good just because our cheap characters allow us to keep up more Dawn, depending on what we play. And its ability to KO something else is pretty awesome, right? Because our characters don't have any of these natural abilities, there's very little potential for removal. So I think because we're running vanillas, we need to have our removal come in the form of event cards. Speaking of which, we do have one of the best cards when it comes to removing things, and that is 3 copies of Jet Pistol. So it's 4 costs to play, but its main ability is KO one of your opponent's characters with a power of 6,000 or less. Then trigger, activate this main effect. Like I said, if you pair this with Otama, you can essentially knock out anything with 8,000 power, aka Kid, and overall it's just very solid to have. Because like I said, a lot of our main attackers do cost just a little bit less, so we do have the potential to play at 10 Dawn, right? We could play a Yasop and then also play a Jet Pistol. That way we get something 8,000 power on the field, and then we get to KO something on my opponent's side of the field for 6,000. So yeah, honestly, it's pretty good. If you wanted to mess with these event ratios, I can definitely see it. But because I was, going more vanilla heavy and really wanted to sort of see these cards when I played, potentially I went more character heavy than maybe the most effective or efficient way to go about it. But yeah, overall, that is my Vanilla Spice Uta deck. Let me know in the comments down below what you thought about it. Given the sort of parameters or restrictions, what would you include? What would you take out? Would love to hear your thoughts on this. And like I said in the beginning, if you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to the channel. I do have a variation of this that I want to show off, but I want to try and get some gameplay of it first and then do the deck profile. So we'll see how that goes. And then obviously there's a couple of other ideas for the Sat 1 stuff that I have, but also the new starter deck for the Navy, the Marines, is coming out in Japan pretty soon. And in the US, we're getting really close to the super pre-release. So I'm going to be talking about One Piece a lot over the next couple weeks. So if you don't want to miss out on those conversations, be sure to hit the notification bell. That way you know when these videos come out. But anyway, I think that's going to do it for me. So thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate it. And captains, remember, build what you like, play what you love. And I'll catch you in the next video. Have a good one.